If there is a game that defined the superhero genre, then it is Batman Arkham Asylum. Being the very first of the same Arkham games, and building the foundations upon which many other games would grow and develop, like the PlayStation Marvel Spider-Man series, and other non-superhero related video games like the Middle-earth series and the Mad Max game among others. But what makes Arkham Asylum such a special entry in the video game industry? What makes this game, at least to me, the best Batman game ever made? We'll soon find out. If you're interested, then sit, relax and reflect with me. Be aware that this is just my opinion. If you agree with it, fine. If you don't, fine. Either way, if you want to express yourself in the comment section, then go ahead. But please, do so with respect and consideration for your fellow man. We're just talking about a video game. We don't need to get distasteful or political about this. So, if you're going to talk, do so nicely. That being said, I will start my reflection on Arkham Asylum and why I consider it is the best Batman game ever made. Just in case, I will keep the spoilers to the minimum. Arkham Asylum is a masterpiece when it comes to atmosphere, being easily the most atmospheric of all the Arkham games. That first shot of the sky with the Batsignia, with the music creeping in, the sounds of Gotham City, always in trouble, and then the Batmobile sweeping through the scene, driven by no less than the Batman himself, escorting the infamous Joker into the Arkham Asylum gate, quickly tells you what a treat this adventure with these characters will be. Then we get this very long but moody credit sequence in which Batman and the asylum guards are escorting the Joker. This sequence serves well to set the mood for the whole game, one of mystery and adventure. When the Joker says that there is excitement in the air, he is completely right, because the whole scene, dialogues, the way the music plays, everything about that opening is charged with electricity. Something is about to happen, and you know it. For that reason, the Batman is suspicious. After all, the Joker surrendered to him too easily, and by the way he is talking, it seems as if he is planning something else. The Joker even says that the night is just beginning, and that he is happy to be back at his hacienda. This sequence not only introduces the main hero and the main villain of the story, but also introduces many of the other characters that are to play an important role through the story of the game. Commissioner Gordon, of course, Quincy Sharp, Warden of Arkham Asylum with aspirations for mayor next year, and other characters like Officer Catch, Dr. Young, Officer Bowles, Killer Croc, and a moment later, Harley Quinn, before the Joker breaks free, of course, and traps Batman inside the asylum for what will soon become a very long night. After that intro, the game itself starts with a bang, throwing thugs at you and teaching the player the basics of combat. Afterwards, we have a game that knows very well how to quicken its pace and lower it when needed, delivering an almost perfect balance between action, story, puzzle, and even some character exposition. Yes, in this game we play an experienced Batman, but the game finds the way to sort of show us his origin story without actually turning the story and its gameplay into an origin story. I am not going to spoil much here in case you haven't played the game yet, but the way they tell Bruce Wayne's story is very creative. Another thing that makes this Batman, the Arkham Batman, so compelling is the performance provided by actor Kevin Conroy, the same actor who first did the role in the animated series back in the early 90s, and continued doing the role for 30 plus years until his death on November of 2022. By the time he did the role in the Arkham games, he had so much experience with this character. He understood the Batman so well that he delivered perfectly well the idea of playing an experienced Batman, because the actor was an experienced actor doing his signature role. Arkham Asylum came in the perfect moment. Kevin Conroy was still alive and he had years of experience performing the Batman. And if that wasn't enough, we have none other than Mark Hamill himself playing the Joker. Mark Hamill always did the Joker when Kevin Conroy did the Batman. And if things aren't good already as they are, we have Arleen Sorkin from the same animated series playing Harley Quinn. Unfortunately, this would be the only time she played the role in the Arkham games, although her follow-up, Tara Strong, also did a great job as the Harlequin. These three understood their roles so well and worked perfectly with one another, and those years of experience and friendship reflects in this game. Hearing these voices in Arkham Asylum is like hearing the continuation of the animated series. It feels like part of the same thing, but in a good way, because the game builds on nostalgia, but stands on its own 2 feet as well. As a video game, Arkham Asylum is almost perfect, not asking the players to have seen the show first, but having a lot in store for those that did. Comic book fans are also in for a treat. Another thing that helped make this game so special is the rising of video games and computer technology at the time. This game came out in 2009. Video game technology was improving dramatically during that time. However, the video game industry was, so to say, still more innocent and more focused on delivering good experiences to the player. Another thing that helped this game was the growing popularity of the stealth sandbox genre, mainly through the success of the Assassin's Creed franchise. Arkham Asylum clearly took inspirations from Assassin's Creed. The open world filled with collectibles and side objectives, check. The combat is kind of similar, stealth to a smaller degree, the detective mode, obviously. But the thing with this game, and the whole Arkham series, is that they took obvious inspirations from Assassin's Creed, but they flew with each and every one of those ideas. Let's start with the combat. Ubisoft had a similar idea of a free-flow system in which you can glide seamlessly from one enemy to the other just by pointing and clicking without the clunkiness of the hitbox system and the rigid camera that hangs on the back of the player character always. This was the norm of most 3D games 25 years ago, so Ubisoft had an interesting idea with its combat system, and it was first seen on games like Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time back in 2003. That game had many ideas similar to the ones of Arkham Asylum later on, like beating the enemies to the ground and then doing them a finisher so they don't get up again. This type of combat Ubisoft carried on to Assassin's Creed in 2007, although that game completely removes the magical elements and the nearly supernatural acrobatic skills of the prince, favoring instead a more realistic and red-blooded approach. Even so, these games shared a similar DNA, a free-flow system with chain attacks and ground takedowns. However, it was Warner Bros. With Rocksteady in 2009, the ones that truly nailed this idea, creating what we now know as the free-flow combat system, which is one of the most fluid, versatile and exciting combat systems I've ever seen, very much like an action movie, and at times, even better. I have played these 3 games, The Sands of Time, Assassin's Creed, and Arkham Asylum, multiple times, and I've come to understand and master fairly well all 3 systems to the degree that I can point out their similarities and their differences accurately. I love all 3 games, and their respective combat systems very much, but if I had to choose which the best is, I would quickly say Arkham Asylum. The stealth is another big thing completely, and this is where it separates more from Pop and AC. Prince of Persia doesn't always use stealth, but when it does, it revolves more on verticality, positioning, timing, and successfully playing a type of quick-time event minigame. Assassin's Creed also uses a lot of verticality and positioning, but it added more depth to the table, introducing, as many of us know, the concept of social stealth. In simple words, the ability to hide within city crowds. Arkham Asylum uses a more Uncharted-esque style of stealth, by sneaking behind enemies or around corners or ledges and taking them down one by one with the use of hands instead of a knife or a hidden blade. The main difference between Nathan Drake and the Batman is that Nathan Drake has a body count that would make Lara Croft envious, while the Batman doesn't kill. Sort of. However, the stealth system introduced in Arkham Asylum stands out from so many other stealth games because of how individualized it is. This is the Batman in action. In many stealth games you can hide behind a corner and take someone down, or plant a bomb and blow a gunpowder reserve, or climb to a perch and hang someone below you, but only Batman can do it in a way that feels unique and not generic. This game also introduced the fear system, in which enemies become more and more afraid as the Batman takes them out one by one. This allows for a lot of opportunities through the whole Predator sequence, changing guard routes and behavior according to what is happening. Haunting and terrifying these guys to tears never grows old. Believe me, the social stealth of the Assassin's Creed games is very immersive, but all assassins work in similar fashion, particularly after Assassin's Creed 2 introduced the version of social stealth that the franchise would carry on for many years to come. However, Batman feels unique. In no other game franchise will you be able to do all of these stealth techniques the way Batman does, and that is yet another of the many things that make this game so good. If I were to point out the best element that made Arkham Asylum such a successful game, I would point out the Predator sequences with their fear system. Yes, even more so than its revolutionary free-flow combat system, and it's mainly because of the individuality. Fighting in this game is always satisfying, but it doesn't represent the character of Batman as well as the stealth, in my opinion, does. In contrast to its own game series, the stealth and combat in this first game could easily be my favorite. Arkham City has the most functional combat, and Arkham Knight, obviously, has the most versatile stealth. And I prefer them over Arkham Asylum most of the time. But there is something in the way this first game did things that make it stand out, at least to me. Maybe I am a bit biased because I played this game before the others, and therefore discovered all of these systems first here, but after having replayed the game recently, I realized that what makes Arkham Asylum such a satisfying game is execution rather than depth or expansiveness. Yes, the combat is the most basic version of this free-flow system, but that simplicity kind of helps. It's just a few moves, but each one of them feels relevant. Arkham Knight has so many moves that I forget that some of them even exist, but that doesn't happen to me in the first game. Also, the way the combat feels and sounds has no equal. The fact that this is the game where Batman grunts the most actually helps. In the future games, Batman rarely utters a grunt of effort, and that kind of makes him look less human and more like Terminator. Although that can have a positive effect when it comes to creating the power fantasy of these games, hearing Batman's grunts of effort and pain in the first game makes him more human, and his accomplishments, therefore, even more heroic, because we get to hear the man behind the mask more often. Also, the sound of breaking bones is never as gritty and spine-tingling as it is in this first game. The same goes for stealth. Yes, the stealth is the most basic in the series, and it would certainly help if I had smoke pellets, the ability to do vent takedowns, great takedowns, or multiple fear takedowns, quick fire all of my gadgets and so much more. But once again, that simplicity also helps, because I know how all of my gadgets work and how to perform all of Batman's moves accordingly. Aside of the technical, the presentation of the Predator sequences is also my favorite. The art style is unequaled in this game, the music is perfect, the reaction from the thugs as you terrorize them, the things they say, all of these things were better done here in the first game. Obviously, the open world of Arkham Asylum is the smallest, It's just the Arkham Island. We never get to see Gotham City in this game, but the island and its different interiors are so beautifully drawn in their eerie way that they melt within the brain and you always remember them. The challenges. This game has the least number of challenges in the whole franchise, and that helps. It's not that I mind having more things to do in the other games, but having less encourages more the completionist that has never really existed within me. This game also has the best version of the Riddler, who actually managed to be interesting this first time around, before quickly becoming a nuisance in the second. The Arkham series as a whole is one of the best in terms of how they handle their collectibles and reward players for finding them. But in Arkham Asylum is where I find myself seeking more of this stuff. Once again, the scope and size of the game helps, and also because it is just where it has to be, at least to my personal taste. Not easy to find, but not overly and draggingly difficult as some riddles can turn out to be in the future games. The game has a perfect gameplay loop. Uncovering story unlocks gadgets. Unlocking gadgets widens your access to collectibles. Finding said collectibles gives you more experience to increase your skills, and also unlocks the challenge rooms and the character trophies. Everything makes sense within this loop, and nothing feels overbloated and out of place. It is a small but dense world that you always want to absorb and enjoy completely. The music is perfect, filling the game with a good balance of mystery and heroic action. I like how the soundtrack is reminiscent to all versions of the Batman, while creating its own style, even creating its own Batman theme that stands out from so many good themes. There are plenty of characters with great themes, like James Bond or Indiana Jones, but these characters tend to have one iconic theme. The Batman, however, has a lot of iconic themes, like the one from the Adam West TV show, or the Tim Burton films, the animated series, the Schumacher films, or the Nolan films, and Arkham Asylum delivers once again by creating its own iconic theme, and one that anyone that has played the games quickly recognizes as the Arkham Batman's theme. The characterization itself of the characters is also the best when it comes to making a Batman game. The Batman himself is so well written, so appropriate in this game, and the costume design is superb. Certainly my favorite costume in the whole franchise, and it is mainly because of the black cape. In Arkham City, the costume is based on different shades of grey, no puns intended, and it looks well, but actually using black in the design instead of grey or the blue from comic books is yet another thing that makes this game stand out positively, at least to me. It kind of enhances the mystical feeling of the Batman, making him look darker and even more menacing. Aside of the Arkham Knight Batman, who, in my opinion, is the darkest and scariest of all, this is the other scariest version of the character in the series. I also like how they write the personal battle between Batman and Joker. In this first game, we are seeing more the characters themselves. It is easy for any player to interpret them however way they want, whether that be the original Bob Kane comic books, Frank Miller's version of the Batman, or Brian Boland's take on the Joker, or the animated series, or Tim Burton's version, or Christopher Nolan's, and so on, because these are the most universal versions of the characters in the Arkham series. I applauded when in Arkham City they began to develop their own identity, doing with the characters what suited that story better, even if it meant killing some of them. I similarly applauded when Arkham Origins provided backstory to many of these characters, fleshing out the Arkham universe even more, and when Arkham Knight gave us a conclusion. However, the more universal approach, or eternal approach if you prefer, of this first game has its own appeal. In Arkham Asylum we could easily be seeing the characters that Bob Kane and Bill Finger created almost 100 years ago in yet another episode of Detective Comics. Arkham Asylum not only revolutionized superhero games in particular, but has also inspired the video game industry as a whole, and even future Batman films as well. I said before that this game clearly took inspiration from Assassin's Creed, and that is very true, but seeing the same AC games that released after this one, and you will see how much the Arkham series has inspired Assassin's Creed afterwards. After Batman glided for the first time in 2009, Ezio started gliding with a parachute in 2010 in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. After Rocksteady did what Ubisoft had failed to do before, which is nail a free-flow combat system in Arkham Asylum, Ubisoft then came with its own version, which is the kill streak. Even if Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed 1 had similar systems in which the player could chain attacks and do finishers, Brotherhood's system is very similar to Batman's, requiring the player to strike 3 blows in succession before starting the free flow, or the kill streak as called in Brotherhood. Afterwards, we've seen different versions of line launchers and grapple-like effects in different AC games, like Revelations and Rogue. In Syndicate, they went all in on the Batman mythos and gave the assassins of that story a full-fledged grapnel gun. They also introduced a combo system and an Arkham Knight-styled skill tree. Even the detective mode in Arkham Asylum, which is one of the most obvious things based on the Assassin's Creed series, the latter having done this idea first with their Eagle Vision, Ubisoft nevertheless would adopt many of the fine-tunings that Rocksteady did to the idea. One of the best things of the detective mode in all Arkham games is the ability to see enemies beyond the walls. Ubisoft would then implement this improvement in Black Flag and all the games subsequently. I could go on with my thoughts on how much I like this game, but the video has turned out longer than I was expecting, and it's about time I call it in for a night. This isn't particularly a should you buy or before you buy video, but if you haven't played this game, I definitely recommend it to anyone that has even a passing interest of superheroes or video games in general. Let me know what you think of this game in the comments. Which of the Arkham games is your favorite, stuff like that. Press the like button, subscribe because I will be doing other similar videos in the future, and as always,
stay safe.